here we go.
Welcome to the 9 Route Fantasy Football Podcast.
Welcome into the 9 Route Fantasy Football Podcast, everyone. Pat and Scott. Well, wait a second. Scott's not here. Pat and we have a special guest on today, a good friend of the show and a good friend of Scott and I. He's been in our fantasy football league, our league of record since it began, basically. Still titleless, unfortunately, but we're hoping this year we can change that, huh? DJs, you've been getting pretty close for a while there. We have DJ Erdman on the show today.
How you doing, Pat? Happy to step in for Scott. Don't know that I can fill those shoes. And I think it's important for the listeners to know that I don't quite have the success you and him do.
Well, he has more success than I think anyone in the league. He's the only 3-time winner in our league of record, which still pains me to this day to know that that's the case. But yeah, he tried to do this mock draft episode. He's actually on vacation with his family. He called in and gave it a go, but the reception where he was at was just terrible. So all the listeners out there who think Scott was bailing on the podcast here, now he's doing well. He's having a good time. He's at the beach and at the pool and all that good stuff. He did try to get on with us, so he is dedicated. He just wasn't able to get on the podcast with us this week to do the mock draft. So I asked DJ to step in. I figured you were one of the guys who been in, like I said, you've been in our league for a very long time, and I've always sort of respected your opinion on fantasy football. And I feel like just because you haven't necessarily won a title in that league doesn't mean that you're not a good fantasy football player. You've had some pretty bad injury luck over the years, where you've had some really good teams that had a chance to compete, and then a guy would get hurt here and there, and it would kind of just submarine your chances. But I do respect your opinion on fantasy football, and I'm happy to have you on with me for the mock draft episode.
Thank you again. My pleasure.
So before we start, there was a little bit of news that came out today that we just wanted to go over real quick. Go ahead, DJ. You were the one that wanted to talk about this, so I'll let you go ahead and start.
Well, I just wanted to mention, we're all getting ready for our fantasy season. Some of us have already drafted. Most of us probably trying to do that week 3 of the preseason. Big loss today for our real-life football rivals, the Dallas Cowboys, losing their left tackle again. Everyone's penciling him in for a yellow jacket, but the latter half of that career, I don't know.
Yeah, he's been riddled with injuries.
Yeah, but, and when drafting the fantasy football pie chart, injury is the biggest piece of the pie. Research and strategy, probably the second biggest, and then, personal preference, character. Some people like Pat draft more with logic and reason, and they're numbers guys, and people like Rudy and I are a little bit more emotional, go with our heart.
Drafting from the heart, yeah.
So, it changes where you're taking your Ezekiel Elliott's, your Pollards, your maybe even Dax, because now there's questions on that offensive line. You're already asking questions about losing your number one receiver for Dak Prescott. Now you're losing your number one receiver and your left tackle. And then for Zeke and Pollard, like, who's going to get the lion's share of the carries and who's going to block for them now?
Yeah, that could definitely change the effectiveness of both of those guys. I mean, left tackle is probably definitely the most important spot on the offensive line, especially when you have a right-handed quarterback like Dak Prescott. But Smith's, prowess in the run game has long been played down because of Dallas's pass-happy offense that they've had the last few years. But yeah, I mean, when Zeke was at his best, it was because Tyron Smith was at his best as well. I mean, as well as Zach Martin and all the other stud offensive linemen they had. So yeah, this is definitely a big hit for the Cowboys. As an Eagles fan, it's not the worst thing in the world, I guess. I mean, you hate to see anybody get injured, especially before they get a chance to play in the regular season. But if anybody's going to lose a left tackle, I'm glad as an Eagles fan, the Cowboys and not the Eagles.
And back to what you said, you never want to see a guy get hurt. I know you, myself, Scott, we like to see the Eagles beat Dallas twice a year, but we want to beat them when they're full strength, when it really counts.
Yeah.
So,
All right, so today we are doing our mock draft episode. Like I said earlier, we're going to jump into it so that we have time to sort of explain each of our picks and, you know, what we're thinking about these players and hopefully give anyone listening out there an idea of what goes into the thought process of draft picks and I guess where your mind goes when you're trying to decide between 2 or 3 players at draft spot. So today we will be doing a PPR mock draft. It's going to be the standard 1 quarterback, 2 running back, 2 wide receiver, 1 tight end, 1 flex, and then we're going to have 5 bench spots for a total of 12 rounds, and we should get through those pretty quickly. DJ has had the luck of picking the 102 randomly, so he's going to be drafting from the 2 spot. I will be drafting from the 5 spot, which is also not that bad. I do like the 5 spot. I think it's one of the better draft spots in the league this year because of the sort of the top 5 consensus players on the board, and we'll get a little bit into that as we get started. Do you have any general strategy, DJ, from drafting from the 2 spot? Is it something that is it a spot that you like? Is it a spot you don't like?
It's a spot I don't like. I like the latter half of the draft order. I like to come around in the snake drafts and get the second player early in the second round. The value, it's very top heavy up there at 2.
Mm-hmm.
And if this were a real draft, I'd probably try to trade this pick, move into the second round, try to grab 2 second rounders, maybe 2 third rounders, fill some roster spots rather than taking that Jonathan Taylor, Jamar Chase, or Cooper Kupp, whatever your flavor is. I like to get the AJ Browns or the CeeDee Lambs later, and then get the running back right behind it. As you've mentioned in previous shows, I am a hero running back drafter. I don't think it's a dying position. Diluted. There's only a few up there, as most of us know. But I like to get one solid back in the early stages of my draft. And maybe I have the opportunity to take one of the 2 best here with pick number 2.
Yeah, I think I do also like the hero RB strategy. As long as that hero RB stays healthy, I think it's an optimal strategy, honestly, because I think at the top of the draft, there's so many good pass catchers, but wide receiver is also so deep that you can go into the 3rd, 4th round. And there's actually, anybody who's into fantasy football who follows preseason fantasy stuff on any regular basis has heard of the running back dead zone. It's that round, 3 to 5 area where all of those running backs just seem to never really return their value where they're being picked. And so a lot of wide receivers go in that 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th round, which is, I think, like I said, I think that hero RB strategy is starting to be adopted a little bit more by a lot of people, which is why you're seeing that dead zone area where running backs are not really going in the 3rd to 5th or 6th round. So being where you're at, you will have an opportunity to grab one of those heroes. And, it's going to be interesting to see the way the rest of your roster shakes out, because you do have that pick coming back with the 211 and then the 302. So I know that those picks are not, maybe not what the end of the 1st, beginning of the 2nd round picks are, but they're still pretty quality players in those spots that you can get. And especially if you get that hero RB out of the way with one of these first 2 picks, you can really load up on some good wide receivers in round 2 and 3. So it's going to be interesting. I myself am happy with the 5 spot. I do like the fact that I will be getting one of who I would consider the top 5 players, which for me is Taylor McCaffrey, Kupp, Jefferson, and Chase. Whoever of those 5 falls to me is pretty much going to be an auto pick at that point. So coming around in the 2nd round, I have the 208. So you're not as far back as you. There's still an opportunity to gain an advantage with either a really good running back there as my hero RB, or perhaps a really good 2nd wide receiver, or even a tight end in that spot. Sometimes I decide to go, but we'll see how that goes as we go through the draft. All right. So you ready to start this mock draft off? You want to get going?
Here we go.
All right, so the mock draft has started, and Christian McCaffrey has come off the board at the 101, and you are now up at the 102. Where are you looking to go here?
I know you love CMC. I've never had him. I've never loved him. I'm going Jonathan Taylor. I'm going with the hero back. I want the volume. I think Matt Ryan's going to do a lot for him this year, maybe less in the carry department and more in the reception department. He's a big guy. He's a fast guy. who doesn't want to? I mean, I could probably get 1,000 yards behind Quentin Nelson. So Taylor's my guy. I like my guy. I need 14 games a season where you're more willing to take that swing on McCaffrey, get 30 points a game for 8 to 10 weeks. I want the guy that's going to give me 14 to 17 games a season now, and I think Matt Ryan.
You'll take the 22 to 25 points instead, and just get it all year long. No, I get it. Listen, I completely understand why Jonathan Taylor is the 101. You know, with McCaffrey's injury history the past couple of years, it's hard. It's hard to take him at all in the first round. I love him because I just don't care about injuries. I mean, unless somebody's coming back off of a serious injury, you know, some sort of like knee or reconstructive surgery or something like that, I'm not really, you know, McCaffrey's injuries have all been sort of fluky, kind of like, well, I shouldn't say, yeah, they're like muscle strains and sprains and things like that, where, you know, you just keep you out for a little bit, but there's no surgery required. So I'm not too concerned about McCaffrey this year. But again, if I was in your spot, I would have taken Taylor as well. So recapping the next couple picks after your pick at Taylor, Austin Eckler went at 3, Derrick Henry at 104. So very running back heavy early. So that leaves all 3 of the wide receivers that I mentioned on the board for me. It's really, really hard to not take Cooper Kupp in this spot because of the incredible season that he had last year. But as we all know, it's incredibly hard to repeat as the RB1, the wide receiver 1, the QB1 year to year. Seems like Travis Kelce is the only one that has figured out how to be the number 1 at his position for so long. And even he didn't do that last year. So for me, as much as I love Kupp, I do think that Allen Robinson being in LA is going to have a little bit of an effect on Cooper Kupp's target share. Robert Woods went down last year, and it definitely opened up a little bit more work for Cooper Kupp than I think he was even expecting to have. He was by far the number 1 receiver on that team, but I am going to go with Justin Jefferson here at the 105. I just believe that Jefferson is I think he said it on Twitter that that he wants to be the best receiver in the league. He wants to go for 2,000 yards this year. I'm not saying he's going to get there, but I like a guy who has that kind of moxie and that kind of confidence in himself that he's going to go ahead and basically break the receiving record. So I want to be on board with that when that happens. So I'm taking Jefferson at the 105.
You're taking a guy that came onto a Randy Moss team, broke a Randy Moss record in his rookie season. The game's changed, so it was probably a little bit easier for him to do that. But I was always a Jamar Chase guy over Jefferson. Man, he has wowed me. The new coach coming over from the Rams, Kevin O'Connell, Jefferson is poised to have a big year. Gosh, Cooper Kupp, man, come on, Matt Stafford, go dog. But
no, I hear you.
Jefferson, I was going Jefferson or Chase there.
As good as Kupp is and probably will be. He's had one really great year. He finished as wide receiver 4 in 2019 as well. So he's had a couple of good years in his career. But like I said, I think Allen Robinson being there does a little number on Cooper Kupp's volume this year. So I just think Jefferson, with an aging Adam Thielen there, and the Vikings didn't really do anything to add any other pass catchers in the offseason. Nobody that's going to really make a difference. I just think that I think he's going to lead the league in targets, and I think that he's got the athletic ability to number 1 overall wide receiver. Finishing off the rest of the first round, we had Najee Harris at 106, Cooper Kupp went at 107, Dalvin Cook at 108, Mark fell at 109, Devontae Adams at 110, DeAndre Swift at 11, Mixon at 12. Team 12 took Mixon and Chubb on the 1-2 turn, and then back to Team 11 for CeeDee Lamb, Aaron Jones, Stephon Diggs. Team 9 started with Jamar Chase and Stephon Diggs. That's a nice start right there. I have those guys in my top 10 overall players. Tyreek Hill at the 205, Alvin Kamara at the 206, and then Travis Kelce finally went off the board at the 207. That's the latest I've seen Travis Kelce go in a mock draft in a really long time. I think if Kelce had fallen to me one more pick, I think for sure I would have taken him, because as much as I like a lot of the later tight ends, I think Kelce is going to be a huge value this year. And I think he's going to regain that tight end 1 overall position again this year with some of the weapons being gone from Kansas City's offense. I think Kelsey's going to be relied upon a lot more this year than he was last year.
I agree with you, especially early in the season. We all know that Tyreek's in South Beach, Hardman, another Bulldog, injured, and he really hasn't been. He's been less productive than I was hoping his first couple seasons. You want to see Juju get back to that season he had a few years ago, where he was a number 2, but he was putting up number 1 numbers. The only guy that Mahomes has that chemistry with left is Kelsey. He's probably going to put up a heck of a year.
Yes, yeah, and him slipping as far as he did, I think would have been, that would have been a huge, especially in a PPR league, to start with Jefferson and Kelsey. That would have been monstrous. But Kelsey is gone, alas, and so here at the 208, I am looking at. I haven't taken a running back yet. I did say that I do like that hero running back strategy, and one of the guys that I have been targeting a lot in the second round, and it looks like other people have too because his ADP has slowly been rising throughout the offseason, is Saquon Barkley. I know that he's got some injury history as well. Maybe I just like taking injury riddled players in the hopes of them having a comeback season. But I think Barkley is still one of the most talented running backs in the entire league as far as his physical attributes. I'm hoping that the Giants offense takes a step forward, at least if I get Barkley anywhere. I'm hoping that. But I think with Joe Judge out of there and Brian Daboll in as the head coach, I feel like the arrow's pointing up, and I'm hoping that it's pointing up for Barkley because I'm going to take him here at the 208.
It's a good pick. They took the tackle in the draft, Evan Neal out of Alabama, another Shaq-size offensive lineman. They drafted Andrew Thomas last year for their offensive line. Daboll, I mean, you saw what he did with Josh Allen. We wouldn't take a flyer on him 3 years ago, and now we're talking about him as an MVP and in the Super Bowl. So the guy knows what winning football looks like, and from watching early Saquon Barkley, he looks like a winning football player. It's just those injuries, and if he gets banged up, hopefully it's a short-term injury and it's for the 2 weeks they play Philadelphia.
Yeah, sorry, real quick. He did have one of those injuries that did require surgery. He had the ACL, remember, 2 years ago. So that is a little bit scarier, but a lot of studies have been done that once players come back from an ACL injury, they're actually less productive the year that they come back, and then they return to closer to, or even some of them even perform better in that second year back from their ACL surgery. So this is probably the bounce back year for Barkley. He's still young enough. He's in a new offense, and I think that he could have a really big season this year, and I'm hoping he does because he's going to be my hero RB for this mock draft. So right after Barkley, Mark Andrews and Leonard Fournette went, and now you are on the board at the 211, having Jonathan Taylor so far on your team. Where are you looking to go?
Well, it would have been really nice to compliment Jonathan Taylor with Mark Andrews, but as you mentioned, he went. I'm going to double down on the running back. I listened to a show earlier this week you guys put out about Melvin Gordon. You guys are very high on Melvin Gordon. You had him at number 36, I believe, but you like. I'm telling you, I love this kid, Javonte Williams, out of North Carolina. I loved him last year coming out. I think the guy does it all. He reminds me of a faster Ray Rice. He can catch the ball. He can run the ball. Russ was cooking in Seattle for so long because after Marshawn Lynch sailed off into the sunset and got a DUI, they couldn't run the ball. So Nathaniel Hackett, you think about it, he's coming from Green Bay. He has Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon, and they're both starting running backs. And that offense was so brilliant, they both got their numbers. So with a Hall of Fame quarterback, I'm going to go Javonte Williams, and I'm happy with that pick.
Yeah, I listen. I'm not a Javonte hater. The only thing that draws me away from him is the fact that he, still has Melvin Gordon there. But I think that given the opportunity to even pick up 70% of this offense at the running back position, he could very easily be a top 12 running back. So I don't hate that pick. We got two young stud running backs to start your draft. Deebo Samuel and Ezekiel Elliott were taken by Team 1 at the 2-3 turn. And now you are back up at 302 with, like I said, two really good running backs on your roster already. So where are you looking with this third round pick?
Okay. Now, normally I don't go tight end too early, especially there's a guy I love, TJ Hawkinson. I get in later rounds, but I'm staring at Kyle Pitts. And I know that if Rudy were here, if I'm going to really fill in, I'm sorry, if Scott were here and I were to fill in his shoes, I'm going Kyle Pitts. So I'm looking at A.J. Brown, and it'd be really nice to root for a Philadelphia Eagle all season. But what he brings to a football team, not to mention I live 20 minutes from their training facility. I was over there 2 weeks ago watching them practice before their first preseason game. Guy's an animal. I'm going to take Kyle Pitts. I'm going to hope the combo of Mariota and Ritter can get him the ball. I mean, he's your wide receiver one in Atlanta. I'm down here. I listened to the radio. Drake London looks really nice, and he's going to be good if he can bounce back from that minor knee injury. But Pitts is a unicorn. He's a mismatch nightmare. What do you think, Pat? Is that a good pick?
Yeah, I mean, I'm rising on Pitts. I don't have him ranked as the third tight end. He's my fourth tight end off of the board. But in a PPR league, I don't hate it because you know that he's going to get 125, 135 targets, maybe even more than that, honestly, in this offense this year. So, I mean, I don't hate the pick, and especially in a PPR league. And you can't keep a guy like that out of the end zone forever. You know what I mean? Like, he's got to score more touchdowns than he did last year. He already finished as the tight end 4 last year in his first season. I mean, that could be the case again this year too, though. So
yeah, but what I like is you're getting the targets and you're playing from behind. Part of my strategy is I go late on quarterback. I want talented losers. I was a Phillip Rivers guy for years because in the fourth quarter, this guy is putting the pickle up. Like, he is throwing the ball all over the field. Whereas your Aaron Rodgers, they're up 2 touchdowns halfway through the third, and he's just cooling down, getting ready to go do mushrooms in the woods or whatever it is he does.
Right. Yeah, I like that. So all right. So after your Kyle Pitts pick, Mike Evans and Keenan Allen went at the 303 and 304. I am up at the 305, and I am looking at a couple of different players. Josh Allen is the top ranked player on the board. It's tempting to take Allen here, but I am a late round QB guy. That's just, I feel like there's so much value to be had late in drafts at the QB position. It is super tempting to take Allen here. But I will hold off and bite my tongue in this spot and probably give Allen to the team 6 behind us. It's got Travis Kelce, so he'll be stacked at 2 different positions. But like you said earlier, really would like to root for a hometown guy in Philadelphia, and all the reports out of camp up here are that A.J. Brown is just dominating on a daily basis. And, we got that Darius Slay giveaway that we're doing, the autographed jersey. Apparently, Slay can't even keep up with A.J. Brown. He's just murdering people on the practice field. So if he can remain healthy, it looks like him and Jalen Hurts have a pretty good connection. I feel like in this spot here with Justin Jefferson and Saquon Barkley on the team already, taking another top-end wide receiver who, A.J. Brown could realistically put up top 6 wide receiver numbers this year if Jalen Hurts can continue to improve as a passer in the NFL. So I'm going to take A.J. Brown here at the 305.
Pat, I love A.J. Brown. I always have. As you know, I'm a big college guy. I moved myself down here to SEC country just to get closer to where it really matters. I liked him more than DK coming out. They were college teammates. DK's got the bigger measurables, the faster 40 time. Great pick. I see them and Sirianni, who impressed me last season, using him similar to how the Niners used Debo this year. I could see A.J. Brown, who's a big guy, taking some snaps in the backfield and given that first-round pick a couple years ago, the one that was taken before Justin Jefferson, Jalen Reagor, you got to see if this guy can do anything. So I could see A.J. lining up in some unique positions on the field. Sirianni, a former wide receiver coach, great pick. Really excited about everything the Eagles did in that draft.
Yeah, for sure. And as I predicted, Josh Allen went right behind me there at the 306. So that team is started with Najee Harris, Travis Kelce, Josh Allen. So it's a pretty decent start there. James Conner went at the 307, then Cam Akers, Patrick Mahomes, George Kittle, T. Higgins, Justin Herbert to round out the third round. Fourth round started with Terry McLaurin, Michael Pittman at 402, David Montgomery, Breece Hall, Darren Waller, Lamar Jackson. Travis Etienne went at the 407, who that's actually a guy that even in these hero RB starts, if Etienne falls to me in the fourth round, I'm usually trying to grab him because I really feel like he's got the potential, especially, like you said, with the check downs, what you're talking about, catching passes with Jonathan Taylor earlier. I think Etienne, he's primed for, 5 or 6 targets a game to go along with any rushing work that they give him. And he's explosive enough that 10 touches a game is really all he needs. And I think once the cat is out of the bag, so to speak, in Jacksonville, they're just going to keep giving him more and more work because he's that type of guy. Unfortunately, he is gone, so I am looking at a bunch of wide receivers here. A couple running backs on the board: Josh Jacobs, Antonio Gibson, J.K. Dobbins, Eli Mitchell. I'm not really too big on them. The top wide receivers left are Deontay Johnson, Jalen Waddle, DJ Moore. There's your DK Metcalf that you were just talking about. But a guy that I really like and a guy that I have been really high on and a guy that I have just been making sure that I grab every possible time that I can get him, I am scooping him up. It is Courtland Sutton. I'm going to take Courtland Sutton here at the 408. I just feel like he's got the ability to be basically what DK Metcalf was drafted to be last year. And I know he didn't finish, as high as we all expected last year, but I think a lot of that was due to Russell Wilson's injury. So there is, a little bit of a, I don't want to say excuse, but a little bit of a reason building. He finished as the wide receiver 14 last year, but finished as a wide receiver 7 in 2020. And I feel like Courtland Sutton and DK Metcalf, I get that, DKF's like a physical freak, but Courtland Sutton is not, a small guy. He's not slow. He's just the opposite of all of those things, actually. He's 6'4", 216 pounds. I mean, the guy's just an absolute athletic freak, and he now gets Russell Wilson. And I just think, he's got the opportunity to really blossom as a pass catcher. That injury in 2020 really derailed him, and I think it took a little bit of time for him to get back last year. Plus, he's playing with a mishmash of Teddy Bridgewater and Drew Lock last year, so that's never really a good thing for fantasy points. But I think with Russell Wilson, I think Courtland Sutton could very easily be a top 12 wide receiver this year. All right, the next two players off the board, Jalen Waddle and Deontay Johnson. And now you are up, DJ, at the 411.
What I like about the player I'm going to take here is his name. And
wonder where you're going.
And his quarterback and his head coach have a lot to prove. This guy's been there and quietly doing way more than anyone gives him any attention for. I've been paying attention for a long time. DJ Moore, I feel like I've been taking you since you've been drafted. He's due. He's due. And I think Baker, I'm not a Baker guy, but
I feel like everybody says that.
He's got that swag of, I got to do something here. This is my chance. I got to show everyone. Sometimes it works for him. Sometimes it doesn't. Whatever it is, DJ Moore is going to be on literally the receiving end of it. So I think he's going to have a good year. I don't know that the Panthers will have a good year. I don't know that Baker will have a good year. But I didn't like any quarterback coming out. I didn't like Darnold. I'm a big Matt Corral guy, but that's another conversation for another day. DJ Moore, let's give me that championship.
All right, Jerry Jeudy and DK Metcalf went in between your pick and your next pick, which is the 502, and you are on the clock again. So right now you have Jonathan Taylor, Javonte Williams, Kyle Pitts, and DJ Moore. Where are you looking here with your pick in the 5th round?
I'm going to go Hollywood Brown. I wanted to fill the receiver positions now that my tight end and my running backs are locked in. Getting back with his college teammate, which seemed to be a theme this offseason.
Mm-hmm.
He's primed for a big year. He's been waiting to get a guy that throws the ball a little bit more. I don't want to say Lamar can't throw the ball, but he doesn't throw it as much. And why would you when you can move like that? But Kyler, he's got more of that. I want to prove I can stand in the pocket and throw it. But if you break this pocket, Watch, I'll find the end zone with my feet. I think Hollywood Brown's going to have a big year with Kyler if he can stay out of trouble.
Yeah, and if DeAndre Hopkins doesn't come back and take that role back over, I think a lot of Hollywood's season-long value is going to be determined pretty quickly, and you're going to have to find out if if he has that connection with Kyler Murray right away or not. So we have Josh Jacobs and Antonio Gibson at the 503 and 504. I'm up at the 505, and I'm not going to give a whole lot of explanation on this pick. Mike Williams is available. He's the top player left according to the ADP on Sleeper. And I just think that Mike Williams is one of those guys who has the potential in that Chargers offense to be an absolute stud this year. He showed it in the first couple of weeks last year and then sort of tailed off a little bit. But if he can stay healthy, I think he actually has – this could be the year that he overtakes Keenan Allen as the number one wide receiver on that team. And I think that as young as he is compared to Keenan Allen anyway, he's 27. Keenan Allen is going to be 31, I believe, during the season. So I think he's got more of the opportunity to just sort of build this rapport with Justin Herbert moving forward and just be the number one guy, going forward. So I'm going to take my fourth wide receiver off the board and take Mike Williams here at the 505.
That's a good pick. That was the safe pick when I was up. And I'm used to taking the safe pick, but listening to your podcast inspired me to take those chances. So, but Mike Williams, I mean, that's a solid pick. He's got everything right in front of him. This may be the season he overtakes Keenan Allen. Watch out for Josh Palmer. But Mike Williams, great pick, safe bet.
Yeah, that's the one thing I don't like about taking Mike Williams is that I really don't like taking two receivers from the same team, so I can't really invest in Palmer later. But it is what it is. If you can get Williams, I think he's a stellar pick, and especially in the fifth round. So J.K. Dobbins went next after Williams, then Amari Cooper, Brandon Cooks, Dalton Schultz, Joe Burrow, T.J. Hawkinson, and then Clyde Edwards-Helaire at the 512. Team 12 also took Juju Smith-Schuster coming back in round 6. Then Elijah Mitchell, Allen Robinson, Chris Godwin, A.J. Dillon, Michael Thomas, and Amon-Ra St. Brown at the 607. And now I am up at the 608. And I've got four wide receivers, and my hero RB and Saquon Barkley. So when you're doing these builds with the hero RB builds, you want to make sure that you grab either a quarterback or a tight end with one of those picks so that you're getting, one of those upside guys. There's no point in doing 0 RB and then drafting, 6 wide receivers. 4 is even a little too much for me. I probably could have and should have gone with the tight end there in round 5, but Mike Williams, I believe, has too much value compared to a guy that I would have taken there, which would have been like a Dalton Schultz, who I am high on this year. But coming back here, there's no tight ends that I like, but there is one quarterback that I really love, and it's also going to allow me to get a stack, which I enjoy doing if I have the opportunity. I'm not reaching too much, and the second best player left on the board, at least according to the ADP here, is Jalen Hurts. So I'm going to go ahead and select him at the 608 and pair him up with A.J. Brown and just hope that the domination that I'm hearing in camp, sort of carries over into the regular season. All right, after Jalen Hurts, Kyler Murray went, then Adam Thielen. DJ, you're up at the 611.
Pat, before I pick, maybe because we have a draft coming up or maybe just because the listeners want to hear, why did you go Hurts before Murray?
2 reasons. Number one, I think that Jalen Hurts has the potential to be the number 1 overall quarterback this year. I think like I said, he's been getting better as a passer. He was technically the best runner if you look at fantasy points from the ground last year in all of fantasy football. And I think with the addition of A.J. Brown, I have him 1 spot ahead of Kyler Murray in my rankings. So I'm trying to be as true as I can to my rankings and take the guy that I like better. But I do like Kyler Murray as well. And if Hurts was gone, I would have taken Murray.
I think either way, it's a good pick. The move I'm going to make here, I'm going to fill out my skill positions before I go quarterback. Darnell Mooney. He came on last year. I like big school pedigree. I like Mackey award-winning tight ends. I like you to go to the big school. This guy, it was a 4th rounder, from a small school, but he's making plays for Justin Fields in Chicago, and he's one of the few people doing it. He's going to get the targets. That division's a mess as far as some of the defensive play. Green Bay's loaded up in the secondary, but Detroit, Minnesota, they're both known for having terrible secondaries. That's 4 games a season. He's going to look really nice. And as long as Justin can learn how to throw from his back, Mooney's going to get some opportunities. I'm going Darnell Mooney.
All right, in between Mooney, Team 1 went with Tom Brady and Dallas Goedert to fill out their starting lineup, and you were back at the 7:02. You now have basically your starting lineup minus your quarterback. So you looking to take a quarterback here, or are you going to, try to build up your bench a little bit and take a quarterback later?
Man, I would build the bench, but there's a guy I'm interested to see this year with a new offensive coach and a lot of weapons around him. Russell Wilson sitting right there. I love Stafford. I have a unique relationship with distant relationship with Trevor Lawrence. So I was willing to wait on the quarterback, but I'm looking at Russ and I'm just, if Kenneth Walker didn't have a hernia issue right now, I might go Kenneth Walker, but I'm gonna go Russ Wilson.
Yeah, I think it's tough to pass up Russ right there. Kareem Hunt went at 7:03 and then Cordero Patterson at 7:04. I'm a little upset because I really thought Hunt was going to fall to me. I'd love taking him in the 7th round when I get the opportunity to do that as my RB2. If you listen to any of our running back episodes, you know how much I love Kareem Hunt and how good I think he is and how good he can be, especially if he ends up playing for a team other than the Browns this year. But since he is gone, I am looking at a couple of other players. I do not have my RB2 spot filled out yet, but the guys that are the next up on the ADP are Miles Sanders and Damian Harris. I don't like either one of those guys. I don't think either one are going to keep their starting jobs throughout the entirety of the season. So I am looking at either tight end or running back. And I think what I'm going to do here is, as much as I love Gabe Davis and Rashad Bateman, who are definitely not going to make it back to me here. I already have 4 wide receivers. So I think what I'm going to do here is take Zach Ertz at the tight end position. I think Ertz I still think he's a good tight end. I mean, he doesn't have the athletic prowess that he once did, sort of a catch and fall down guy. But if he can catch it and fall down like 85 times for, 1,000 yards and 6 touchdowns, then, I'll take that season. I think with DeAndre Hopkins being out, there is the possibility that Ertz is, very familiar with Murray and could potentially be his, sort of safety blanket number 1 target while Hopkins is out. So I do like getting Ertz this late in the draft.
Second year in the offense for a smart player. That's a good pick.
All right, so Rashad Bateman, one of the guys that I like, went at 7:06. Drake London, Dak Prescott, Miles Sanders, and Damian Harris went at 7:09 and 7:10. Aaron Rodgers at 7:11. DeAndre Hopkins at 7:12. Hunter Renfrow, 8:01. Gabe Davis, 8:02. Alan Lazard, 8:03. Devonta Smith, 8:04. Elijah Moore, 8:05. Devin Singletary, 8:06. And Kenneth Walker, 8:07. I am so sad to see that run of wide receivers go because I do like all of those players, save for Hunter Renfrow. I'm not really big on Renfrow this year, but we haven't gotten to our wide receiver rankings yet, so I won't put any spoilers out there. But I'm up at the 8:08. I did like Kenneth Walker as well in this region. Not sure how serious the injury is yet, so that is a little bit scary. So with that being said, I think what I'm looking at here is I'm going to take a starting running back for an offense that I think is going to be much improved this year. He's going to end up being my RB2, and I'm not too sad about that. I think he's got, the opportunity to, rush for 700 to 800 yards and, catch 50 or 60 balls this year. I'm going to go Chase Edmonds for the Miami Dolphins at the 8:08.
I would have loved for you to get Walker there. I'm real high on him, but
I was thinking about taking Penny, but and I love Penny. He scares me because there is the injury history, which, injuries don't really, I don't really kind of play into that, but with Walker being there right behind him and not really knowing what's going on with that, I mean, I do think at some point Walker probably takes over at least, 50-50 snaps with Penny, and I don't want to draft a guy as my second running back who I don't really think is going to get the majority of the work. So Penny did go, however, at the 8:09. Tony Pollard went at the 8:10, and DJ Europe at the 8:11.
There's a couple of guys here I like. I don't know that I'd like them for redraft as much as Dynasty, but I think he could. He's everything through camp. He's healthy. I don't like the coaching situation in New Orleans right now, but I think Chris Olave, the rookie out of Ohio State, could be a number one receiver by the end of the season when you've made it because you've made a really good picks early in your draft, and now you need a guy to give you 4 weeks of unbelievable football play. Michael Thomas coming off an injury, he hasn't been there. He hasn't had Jameis Winston as a quarterback. He hasn't had anyone other than Drew Brees as a quarterback. Juice, Jarvis Landry's went back home, and he's there as well. But I think late in the season, Olave could be a league winner, a term you like to use. If James is healthy, James is putting the ball up.
Yeah, I think Olave was kind of one of those guys that right after the NFL draft did not, it wasn't really on people's radar as potentially being, maybe one of the better rookies, that came out. I don't say better rookies, but as far as fantasy goes, maybe not one of the most productive rookies as far as fantasy goes, but he has been impressive in camp, and he's definitely showing that he has what it takes to be a top flight receiver in this league already in just his first year of training camp. So, all right, so Treylon Burks and Tyler Lockett went at the 8:12 and 9:01, and DJ, you're back up at the 9:02. And who are you looking for here?
Well, I want to start building my bench. I've got my quarterback, I've got my receiving core, I've got 2 young stun running backs, and I like to handcuff. So Melvin Gordon's sitting there. Heaven forbid anything happened to Javonte Williams. I get a handcuff for my bench. If we were doing a full draft, love my starting lineup. I want to secure volume in case one of them goes down.
All right, after Melvin Gordon, Dawson Knox and Trey Lance went at the 9:03 and 9:04. I am up at the 9:05, and I have my full starting lineup and wide receiver on the bench already. And so basically what I'm looking for here is just picking for value. This is the part of the draft that I like the most, is once I sort of have everybody kind of locked in and I kind of know what my team looks like, I can kind of ditch the ADP and sort of just take the best players that I see available. Now, because I only have 2 running backs on my roster so far, I am looking at running back here to see if there's any values. And there's a couple of guys that stand out to me. But the guy who I definitely know will not make it back to me is the guy that I'm going to pick here, and that's Ramondre Stevenson. I just feel like the Patriots are going to try to get Ramondre Stevenson the ball a little bit more. I know Damian Harris is technically their starting running back, but since James White's retirement, Ramondre Stevenson has just become the default pass-catching option out of the backfield, and I think that he's going to get enough run as an actual runner that the receptions and everything he does in the passing game is just going to be gravy. So I really like Ramondre Stevenson. I think he becomes the guy if they split that backfield. I think he, by the middle of the season becomes the guy who, ends up having the bigger share of that Patriots running back.
I agree. I think he's going to be the bell cow midseason on. Big guy. Oklahoma was the college he went to. You don't know what that offense is going to do this year. Who's calling plays? What are they going to look like? Devontae Parker can't separate at the wide receiver position. You know that they're going to run the ball. The offensive line, Sarnekian retires, the offensive line coach, longtime offensive line coach. What do offensive linemen want to do? They want to pass protect or run the ball. They're going to run the ball, and I think Stevenson's going to have that job midway through the season and have a firm grip of it.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so in between my 9:05 pick and this current 10:08, we had Garrett Wilson go, Brandon Ayuk, Matthew Stafford, James Cook, Pat Freiermuth, Robert Woods, Chase Claypool, Derek Carr, Mike Gesicki, Christian Kirk, Damian Pierce, who I was kind of hoping would make it back to me, Kadarius Toney, Sky Moore, and Cole Kmet. And now at the 10:08, again, I am looking at basically just wide receivers and running backs at this point. I generally don't take 2 tight ends or 2 quarterbacks in a draft. So the guys that are standing out to me the most are probably George Pickens, although, I'm hearing a lot of good things about him. I don't know that I want a 3rd wide receiver on a team that I'm not really sure what their offense is going to look like with the quarterback situation that's going on in Pittsburgh. Julio Jones and Russell Gage are also there from Tampa Bay. If Jones didn't sign with the Bucs, I probably would take Gage here. But now I'm not so sure what Gage's role in this offense is going to be with Julio Jones. So I don't really want to touch either one of those guys this early. I think I'm looking to try to get a piece of that Kansas City offense because you just don't know. Like we said earlier, it's probably going to be Travis Kelce. And then we're not really sure, where the next, piece of or chunk of that offense is going to come from. It may be spread out amongst all the wide receivers, but you may have one guy emerge as, sort of the number one target for Patrick Mahomes. And with Sky Moore and Juju Smith-Schuster already gone, I am going to go ahead and select Marquez Valdez-Scantling. All right, after MVS, Michael Carter and Kirk Cousins went, and DJ, you are back on the clock at the 10-11. 3 picks left for you.
So as you mentioned, when you get to this point, your starting lineup is set. You get to ditch the ADP. There's a guy I've told you about I love, like I talked about with Chris Olave, end of the season. You need a couple wins to get in the playoffs, or you're in the playoffs and you need some big games. Jameson Williams. He's a young rookie wide receiver coming off a knee injury. But as you've mentioned in previous shows, knee injuries aren't the same. The torn ACL. I think he's a game changer. I've seen him live. It was something out of this world, the way he can move around the field, his size, his hands. Diehard Georgia Bulldog fan. We did not have an answer for him, and that national championship's a lot different if he finishes the game on the field. And like I said, I think at the end of your fantasy football season, he's going to have a couple big weeks that can close out a season for you and take you home with a championship.
Yes. Yeah, strangely, a Detroit wide receiver could help you win a championship in the last few weeks of your season. That sounds a little familiar, right?
Dan Campbell's doing something up there.
Yeah. No, I believe he's building a winning program finally. So after Jameson Williams, Alexander Madison, and James Robinson went to Team 1, and you were back on the clock at 11:02.
I was hoping James Robinson would fall here.
Yeah, me too.
I love the relationship with Trevor Lawrence and Travis Etienne, but when James Robinson was healthy, he was great, and I think Doug Peterson knows that he's probably his first and second down running back this season. I really want to handcuff here Hollywood Brown, but I'm not a big Rondale Moore guy, and the need of the wide receiver for me right now isn't as bad as some other positions. There's another young guy I like, and I don't think he's going to be a guy that starts the season strong, but he's going to be a guy that ends the season strong. I think he's the future starting running back of the San Diego Chargers, Isaiah Spiller. He was my RB2 coming out this year of college. A lot of production at Texas A&M. I think late in the season, he's going to be a game changer. Austin Eckler, smaller guy, great offensive line. Los Angeles is really the Los Angeles Chargers are really turning the page. I think Isaiah Spiller is going to, like Jameson, like Olave at the end of the year, have some playing time and show some life for your fantasy team.
Yeah, Eckler's been a guy who has struggled with, nagging injuries, here and there throughout the season. So I think the Chargers are probably going to want to lighten his load a little bit, keep him fresh. He's very efficient with his touches, but he's not the type of guy that you want to give, 300 plus carries to. He's not built for that kind of workload. So I think
smaller back, but he gets it done with what he gets. Like I said, he doesn't have a high volume, and any of his seasons, he hasn't had a high volume of carries, but the split of receptions and carries is great.
Yeah, especially in a PPR league. All right, so Tyler Boyd and George Pickens went at the 11:03, 11:04. I am up at the 11:05, and again, passed on Russell Gage and Julio Jones in the 10th round. Not saying that one round makes that big of a difference, but it does make a difference. So I think here in this spot, listen, Chris Godwin looks like he could be close to being ready for week 1, which means, anytime between week 1 and week 3. Mike Evans dealing with a minor hamstring injury, but Mike Evans, he just plays football. Like, he doesn't miss games. And I think in this offense, Julio Jones is going to get the first crack at the number 3 position. I think there's actually I think when it comes down to 2 wide receiver sets, it's going to be Evans and Jones, and Godwin's going to be the slot guy. So if Julio Jones still has it, which it didn't look like he did last year, but he also wasn't playing with Tom Brady last year. So I think he's a good gamble here in the 11th round. So I'm going to go ahead and select Julio Jones at the 11:05. After Jones went Naheem Hines, Albert Okwuegbunam, Rashad White, Russell Gage, Darrell Henderson, Tua Tagovailoa, Jarvis Landry, Hunter Henry to start the 12th round, Christian Watson, Michael Gallup, Rondell Moore, Tyler Algier, Ronald Jones, and then Justin Fields at the 12:07. And I am up with my last pick at the 12:08. And there was a couple of guys that I was kind of hoping would get back to me when I made my pick in the 11th round. They did. So I am going to go ahead and select another running back here. And I know that as of right now, everyone is sort of saying and kind of pointing at, Miles Sanders being the number one running back in Philadelphia. But you saw in that last preseason game, if you watched it against Cleveland, Boston Scott had a great game. Kenny Gainwell got in there and did some great things. I think he scored a touchdown in that game as well. So Gainwell's a guy who I've been growing on as the season has sort of gone on, or the preseason has sort of gone on. So I don't really like taking another Eagle in this spot, but there's not really many other running backs that I like here. Brian Robinson's still on the board. He's an option as well. He actually might be the better option now that I'm thinking about it. With as bad as Antonio Gibson has been playing, Brian Robinson might be the better pick, but you're looking at a potential 3-headed monster there in Washington, and I don't necessarily know that I want any part of Washington's offense this year. So I'm going to go ahead and take Kenny Gainwell with my last pick. All right, after Gainwell went Tyler Higbee and Jacoby Myers, and now DJ, you are up at your last pick at the 12:11.
I'm going to go quarterback here. It's a position it's an important position. You can't afford to go a week without it. It's diluted, so you can get a lot of talent. That's why you and I, it looked like this draft, we both went pretty late for quarterback. But a guy, Trevor Lawrence, I'm a big Doug Peterson fan. I think Jacksonville made a lot of good moves this offseason. I think he's a baller, and I think he's actually going to turn around his year. His touchdown to interception ratio will be a lot better, and they're going to be in some games. Detroit last season played a lot of close games that they lost. I think that team this year is the Jacksonville Jaguars, and he's going to have to throw the ball. So I think he's going to get a lot of points for Russell's bye week, or maybe even possibly some matchups. I don't like Russell out there in the AFC West, toughest division in football. But so I'm going to go Trevor Lawrence here.
All right, so Trevor Lawrence's last pick for DJ. Irv Smith was Mr. Irrelevant as the last pick in the draft for Team 1. All right, so we're going to go over both of our rosters. We'll do yours first since you picked first, and then you just kind of, give me an idea of, what you like about your team, what you don't like, and maybe where you might have done something different. So for you, you have Russell Wilson and Trevor Lawrence at the quarterback position. Jonathan Taylor, Javonte Williams, Melvin Gordon, and Isaiah Spiller are your running backs. Your wide receivers are DJ Moore, Marquise Brown, Darnell Mooney, Chris Olave, and Jameson Williams. And your tight end is Kyle Pitts. So what do you think about your team? You would go to war with these guys?
I love this team. I mean, I think in our league, this team can win. But if I wanted to bolster anything, it'd be that wide receiver position. It's like biceps on a guy. It's a Ferrari. It's the pretty position of fantasy football. You want to get a top guy, and I waited to do that. But when you look at my running backs, the potential of my tight end, even in his second year, and then you get a guy like Russell Wilson with an offensive-minded coach for the first time, a new location, new weapon, maybe not better weapons, but new weapons nonetheless, in a division that's going to be so competitive. And that dude, I'm not a fan, like a big Russ guy. I'm a Marshawn Lynch guy, but that guy competes. So I was good with him at quarterback. Obviously, I got now that I'm in Georgia, I got the local hero, Trevor Lawrence. And then, I went and took a bunch of young guys because I pay close attention to college football. And these are guys that I think at the end of the year, you're going to know their name. And going into next year, the game has changed so much. Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, Jonathan Taylor, these guys are 23 and they're league leaders, fantasy draft winners. The three players I took, Spiller, I'm wishful thinking, but Olave, I think, is a can't miss. And I think the better player, my wide receiver one coming out this year, it was Jameson Williams with Drake London at my number 2. But yeah, I think I like this team. I've got targets in my wide receiver position. I've got touches in my running back position. Yeah, let's go.
Yeah.
Can
Yeah,
we just
definitely.
take this team to the league? Can I and make some money, maybe?
Get myself a championship finally.
Yeah, more of that. Yeah.
Yeah, I do. I like your team as well. So I'm kind of glad this isn't for real. Although looking at my team now, as I'm about to read it, I don't think I would mind taking on your team with the team that I have here. So let me go over my team real quick. The quarterback position, I have Jalen Hurts. Running backs, I have Saquon Barkley, Chase Edmonds, Ramondre Stevenson, and Kenneth Gainwell. Wide receivers, I have Justin Jefferson, A.J. Brown, Cortland Sutton, Mike Williams, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, and Julio Jones. And my tight end is Zach Ertz. I think that, for the lack of, like you said, the lack of Ferraris in your garage, I have quite a few of them at the wide receiver position. I'm a bit lacking at the running back spot. I do really like Saquon Barkley as a bona fide number 1 running back this year, top 10 guy, again, assuming he can stay healthy. But after that, Chase Edmonds, Ramondre Stevenson, guys in that range, I'm a little nervous about, but we'll see how that goes. The one spot that I think I probably could have done differently is, I think, as much as I like the Zach Ertz pick, I feel like that was sort of pushed on me because of the Kareem Hunt thing falling off, and I probably could have grabbed another running back. Since I was so wide receiver heavy early, I probably could have grabbed another running back there where I grabbed Zach Ertz. But I don't hate my running backs. But I think if this was a real league, you and I, we might be looking to make a trade somewhere down the line, because I feel like my strengths are your weaknesses, and your strengths are my weaknesses on these teams. So I would definitely take this team into a season and be pretty happy with it at this point. Again, that's the reason we do these mock drafts, is so we can take a look at them, see, where we may have made a mistake. And, when you go into your real draft, sort of not be in that position where you're like, oh, I got to hurry up and make a pick. And, you make the wrong one. So with these mock drafts, I think, it's good if you're into fantasy football. I think you should do as many mock drafts as you can. We talked a little bit in our draft strategies episode about mock drafting from the position that you're going to be picking in. So if you know where you're drafting from, it helps to draft a lot of times from that same position and sort of get a view of what your team's going to look like. If you take, like I did, I went quarterback in the 6th and tight end in the 7th. Maybe next time I'll go quarterback in the 6th and, like I said, take up another running back in the 7th and pick up a guy like a Cole Kmet or Dawson Knox a little bit later in the draft, and just sort of, hope that the tight end position, won't lose me games at that point to get a little extra in that running back or that flex spot. So I think that this overall was a success. I want to thank you, DJ, for sitting in and mock drafting with me. And, Scott will thank you as well. He said to me, he sent me a text earlier and he was like, well, have fun with your new best friend. So I think he's a little salty, but
he's sensitive. He's at the beach. He's watching the sunset.
Yeah, he's drinking a Corona right now. He's
handwriting poems. He's gonna. So, well, you know what? He brought me on, Scott, because I drafted a bomb squad, and hopefully you turn those love letters for Pat into notes for our draft in a few weeks.
All right. So before we go, I just wanted to mention a few things. We have our Darius Slay signed jersey giveaway. Don't forget to enter that contest. All you got to do is follow and review the show. send screenshots of both of those images to our email at the9routeffb@gmail.com. That will enter you for the contest. Make sure that you put your name and address in the body of the email. We do need a place to send this lovely jersey once you win it. So get those in. We are going to be drawing that in just over a week. Excuse me, just over 2 weeks. We're gonna do that drawing during our Monday recording right before the season starts. So make sure that you get your entries in. Please make sure that you visit our website, www.the9routeffb.com. You can access all of our shows from there. There's information about the jersey giveaway on there. And there's a link to our email if you forget what that email address is. Before we head out for the day, DJ, do you have anything else you want to add in your 15 minutes of fame here?
Football is back, man. What an off season. Great season last year. I got to see my guy, Matt Stafford, win a Super Bowl.
If anybody hasn't figured this out yet, DJ is a diehard Georgia Bulldogs fan. I don't know if that needed to be said or not, but
bleed green for sure. But moved down to Bulldog country to get a firsthand look and what the Eagles did this year. Edit this out or not, let's talk football. Jordan Davis, Nakobe Dean, Howie was in his bag that day, going and getting A.J. Brown, getting Dean in the third. He redeemed himself. I mentioned during our draft, I was a big Doug Peterson guy with that Trevor Lawrence pick. I was heartbroken when he was let go, and Howie redeemed himself this year. I felt like that scene out of Dumb and Dumber where Jeff Daniels shows up on the scooter, and Jim Carrey's like, "You've totally redeemed yourself." So that's what an off season.
Yeah. Howie's been a sort of a spot of contention for Eagles fans for a while. I think this draft he may have bought himself a few more years in that GM role, but a lot of teams had good drafts this year. The Jets, the Giants, the Eagles had a really good draft. Baltimore, as always, had an excellent draft. So it's going to be an interesting season, and we're going to be looking forward to see how a lot of these rookies and these young new guys make an impact on the NFL and on fantasy. But with that, we will sign off for the day, and we will talk to you guys next time.